Good morning, everyone. I'm Sally Ann Armitage. I'm at Next Chapter. I hope you're doing all right. I hope you've got enough in your tank to deal with whatever life's throwing at you at the minute. I'm going to talk to you today about empathy. So, throughout this presentation, I've put a few photos in so we can see some stuff that's pretty. I don't know whether we see enough pretty stuff in life. I've been reading research recently that if you just look at greenery, even if it's pretend greenery, that it has a positive impact on your mental well-being. So this is a picture of the coastal path above Robin Hood's Bay on the east coast, just along from where I live in Leeds in the UK. So today we're going to define empathy, explore why empathy is so important, identify the importance of frames of reference, develop our understanding on how we show empathy to another and how we don't, and explore barriers to empathy. So Mearns and Thorne, I love Mearns and Thorne. I've been doing another project this morning and I've been using this book, Person-Centered Counselling in Action by Mearns and Thorne, and I feel like every time I read it, I'm like, yes, exactly that. That is exactly it. They sort of seem to say in text what I think so much in my mind. So I do highly recommend it. You can get much newer versions. That's an old version. I've had that for a long time. So they note that when empathy is present, the counsellor demonstrates a capacity to track and sense accurately their feelings and personal meanings of the client. She is able to learn what it feels like to be in the client's skin and to perceive the world as the client perceives it. So track and sense accurately the feelings and personal meanings of the client. And I think that personal meanings of the client is really important. It's one thing, isn't it, to sort of get a really strong sense of how a person feels in their context, but it can be quite another challenge to understand how it must feel for them to feel that in their world, with their circumstances, their situation, and their frame of reference, their upbringing, their character. So there's quite a lot to empathy, which we're going to explore today. So Franklin and Sanders note that when the empathy is to make an effort to grasp the world as another person does, to understand and feel it in the same way so that you can stand alongside them. An effort to grasp the world as another does. So there's already that feeling of it can sometimes take effort and it can sometimes be difficult. And they go on to say at one level this is obviously impossible, but the willingness to try to be on the same wavelength, to set aside one's own response is enough. To have some feeling of that of another seems to be a vital part of helping. So we're getting this language. Look at that language. At one level, this is obviously impossible. Okay, wow, it's obviously impossible at one level. So what do they mean by that? So we are going to take some time today to consider that sometimes empathy is incredibly difficult, and sometimes it feels impossible. So we're going to find out why. So firstly, why is empathy so important? Why are people talking about it so much in therapy and in the caring work and in the helping professions? Why is empathy one of the core conditions in person-centered therapy? Why is it probably mentioned in all training for all therapists, no matter what modality, I would have thought? So why is it so important? Well, the attention and efforts of the counsellor, therapist, to understand the client's world helps the client to feel they have value and give them a sense of belonging. So just the fact that someone is sat with a person and really focusing on that person to try and understand their world makes them feel valued, helps them feel valued, and gives them a sense of belonging, because connection is belonging. As soon as connection between two people is formed, then the sense of belonging increases. And I believe that connection is just so, so important for all of our mental well-being, connection to other people. And if you look at the work of Johann Hari, he talks a lot about connection. In fact, just so happens I've got his book up here, and that's not staged. Lost Connections by Johann Hari. See, Johann Hari like that. And he talks about how he helps people, he writes about how people are helped by connecting with others. So as a counsellor seeks to understand and accept the client, their client may be able to understand and accept themselves. Yeah, if you speak about something and somebody accepts you totally for it, slowly but surely it can work that you start to accept yourself a bit more for it. Well, actually, this person isn't judging me. This person is still looking at me kindly and warmly, despite everything I've said. So maybe I'm not that bad. Maybe I'm not that bad. Do you know what I mean? Maybe I'm not worthy of judgment. Maybe, whatever words you put in. So the work is not over-influenced by the counsellor's agenda or perspectives. Therefore, the client is able to hear their own inner voice and begin to be guided by it. So quite often in society, I think this is a generalisation, but I think it's a valid one. A lot of what we say in society when we're talking to somebody is leading them out of their own experiencing, their own state, their own moment. Things like, have you tried going to yoga? Have you tried socialising more? Have you tried tidying up the house? These are all sort of, and I'm not saying this is, from a place, a bad place. I think some people just, they want to help. But what it does is it leads a person into external areas of inquiry. Oh, yoga. Yeah, I did do yoga. It goes into that cognitive brain. I did do it. It was a while ago now. Why did I stop? It goes into that, well, I could do it now, but, I've got quite a lot on my plate. And it goes into that different sort of, it takes away. And also you'll have probably noticed, I would have thought, when people say, oh, when I went through that, this is how I handled it. And even though, like I say, it can be kindly meant, it does lead the person into that sort of, oh, so we're thinking about you now. Let's move it away from me for a minute and think about you. So the absence of empathy can mean the presence of judgment and bias. And it also means the therapist will spend more time in their own frame of reference. And this is really, really important. I'm going to be talking about this quite a lot. Frame of reference, and the whole idea of frame of references, I think, underpins being a good therapist. That you're able to sort of say, yes, I've had a history. I've had this situation. I've had this family, these previous experiences, these difficult experiences, these positive experiences, but I am able to put them to one side and immerse myself in the world of another person. I am able to do that. And do you remember what Franklin and Sanders said? It's sometimes impossible, but the effort to do that, as Rogers said, Carl Rogers, the effort to do that, the attempt to do that, even if it's to a degree achieved, will help therapeutic movement take place. So we don't have to be perfect. Crikey, we don't. We really don't. We don't have to be perfect at all. And we have to be human, and that is enough. We are all human and all connected. So it's all about allowing the client to hear that inner voice rather than leading out or giving it a different perspective that leads away from current voice, inner voice. Okay. It's not gone along, just bear with me. There we go. So I've talked to you, haven't I, about how we need to know what's in our frame of reference. We need to know what's in our frame of reference so we know if something is encroaching on our work with somebody, if we are influenced by something from our own past and our own experiences, and it might be it might be finding its way into the work with a person through our tone, word choice, body language, we might stiffen. It's really important to know what is in our own frame of reference so that we call it bracketing, so we can bracket that and attend to another person. And as Rogers says there at the bottom, can I meet this other individual as a person who is in the process of becoming, or will I be bound by his past and by my past? So can we just be there with a person, unimpeded by preconceptions, judgments, our own core conditions, our own conditions of worth, Can we be there with a person without being bound by these things? But how do you get to know what's in your frame of reference? Well, I've put together a really quick prompt sheet to help you. So you might be watching this and you think, well, I've been a therapist for years, this is stuff that I've thought about before. And yeah, okay. But what I do recommend to everybody, trainee, newly qualified, experienced, is you check in with this sort of thing every so often, because it changes and it needs updating sometimes. Where am I at? Who am I now? So I invite you to answer these questions quite spontaneously. Rather than sort of, let me just give that some careful thought. Let me think about what society would like me to say. Let me think about what my family would like me to say, or let me think about how I would prefer to be when I answer this question, my ideal self. So let me just have some tea. Huge cup of tea. Look, see, it's all like half the size of my head. That's the correct size. Lovely cup of tea. Right, so for those of you that are listening, not watching, the prompts are, to me, family is. My culture is. Love is. The most important thing in life is. It angers me when I really like people who, the hardest time of my life was when, to me, the meaning of life is. So try to answer those quite quickly. What comes to mind first? What's that first thought? It's a little bit psychodynamic, I guess, isn't it? A bit free association. What's that first thought? Because that might be quite a useful thing to reflect on. And if you need people, then find them. Get a peer support group. Reach out to your inner circle. Who's in that inner circle? Who can you talk to? Reach out to people if you need to. Is there any tutors? Yeah, colleagues. Connect with people. Remember, vulnerability inspires vulnerability. So you might think, well, no one ever talks to me about anything that's deep. That's probably because you don't talk to anyone about things that are deep either. It inspires it. You'd be amazed the amount of people where you start to be vulnerable and they start saying, well, actually, I've had some difficult experiences like that too, and suddenly a bit more depth can happen in relationships. So difficulties staying in the client's frame of reference. So even the most experienced therapist will struggle at times to stay in the client's frame of reference. Please remember that. Do not try to head for perfect, expert. I don't think those titles really have any place in the world of caring professions and helping work and therapy like myself. We are in a process of becoming ourselves. We are on a journey ourselves, and I've been a therapist for 12 years. I've stopped adding it up, but I've probably seen between 8,000 and 10,000 client hours now, and even now I sometimes struggle. We're just human beings. It's okay. We've all had many experiences and many different relationships, and some of these may have impacted on us in ways we may not fully appreciate. So those feelings of being, I'm going to say triggered, but I think that's an overused term. But when somebody's talking and they say something and you're like, oh, that's got a link with me. That's got a link with my life. And you might start to feel your mind wandering off onto that stuff, or it might influence how you speak and what you say. So we've all had lots of different experiences, and sometimes we don't always know, if they're going to be creeping up on us at any point. And sometimes, like I say, it happens without us being prepared. As we become more used to self-reflection and introspection is looking inward, we can develop the ability to bracket our own stuff while in the room with a client. So even if it does happen, we're with the client, they're talking, and we're sort of listening, and they say something, we're like, oh, that's very similar to my life, or for some reason that hit quite close to home. We're able to say, okay, fair enough, I'll bob that over there for now, and I'll attend to my client, and I will come back and look at that later with supervision, with a peer, with my own journaling or reflections. So it can be done. It totally can be done. It's a skill, and it's a skill that you can work on and you can get good at. So I wanted to really make this as clear as I possibly could, given that this is not two-way teaching. I can't invite you to do group work in this setting. I can't invite you to do a fishbowl or watch me do it. So I wanted to make it as transparent as possible. So I've put together these little examples of where a frame of reference influences a choice of intervention, or influences what a person says, and where the frame of reference is able to be bracketed and a person can just offer empathy. So I'm going to give you examples of both. So the client comes in, I've recently had surgery after a long time on a waiting list. I ended up being in hospital for a lot longer than I expected. So the counsellor's mind automatically begins to link those words with all of her own experiences, with surgery, hospitals, pain. So the counsellor's frame of reference influences the choice of intervention. Oh dear, I'm so sorry to hear that. How has it been for you? So can you see, we're sort of getting the impression, or at least this is how I see it, the client has come in and they're just sort of saying this is what's happened. They're neither happy nor sad. They're relaying that information. But the counsellor, because of their own experience, is like, oh, can you see they're adding far more than is actually there? And it's really important that we meet our client where they're at, rather than adding far more or taking away. The counsellor is not saying, all right, so you've had surgery. We're not sort of lightening the mood. We're sort of trying to meet that emotional, the emotion where it is, in the client. So the counsellor manages to bracket their own experience and respond with empathy. You've finally had surgery after a long wait, though you hadn't expected to be in hospital for quite so long. So you'll see that that's a paraphrase, and paraphrases skillfully done are a fantastic way of staying in your client's frame of reference, because you're basing what you say in what they say. So it's much easier to stay in the client's frame of reference because you're basing what you say in what they've said. And reflections and paraphrases are so useful in therapeutic work, in caring work, in helping work, in relationships generally. It's so useful because it allows you to be able to respond no matter what somebody is going through and so what somebody has said. They're very powerful, but they do need to be done well. In the past, or in the recent present, or in the distant past, you may have been trained to do paraphrases and reflections, and you may have yourself and watched people do them, and they've been really quite rubbish. They've just gone round and round and round, or it might have become almost quite ridiculous, or it might be that the sort of client was like, and it sort of is not the flow. It doesn't have that flow. And quite often the reason for that, well, firstly, it just takes a lot of practice to get it right. But secondly, reflecting and paraphrasing it's quite useful to include the underlying feel of what is being said rather than just the surface content. And if you're able to get to those emotional meanings of the client, then that's when the reflection and paraphrasing works really well. And I'm going to give you some more examples. So example 2, the client comes in. Despite the fact mum speaks down to me, she is my mum after all, and I really don't want to rock the boat. So the counsellor's mind, within milliseconds, links this information with his own experiences of challenging his parents. So the counsellor's frame of reference influences the choice of intervention. Even though your mum is mean to you, you don't want to stand up for yourself. Okay, so can you feel that element of judgment seeping in there? Can you feel that? And it could be kindly meant, it could have even been said kindly, but it feels like the counsellor's frame of reference has influenced that intervention. And how about if the counsellor manages to bracket their own experience and respond with empathy? So even though you know your mum isn't very kind to you, you don't want to risk jeopardising the relationship. It's exactly what the client has said, but it's just not parroting, it's staying in what's been said. And it's very much in the client's frame of reference. So example 3, client, I feel so lost. My husband was my world and now he's left and I really don't know if I'll ever be happy again. So the counsellor's mum did everything for her dad, who she feels took advantage of her mum's kindness. And in more recent years, the counsellor has become interested in feminism. So the counsellor's frame of reference influences the choice of intervention. It's your time now to find yourself, to discover your own happiness. Can you feel that sort of, I've gone on this really spiritual journey, it's been very powerful for me. This is, you see that's the answer here, I want you to go on the journey I've gone on because it's been so amazing. But is that where the client is at the moment? I'm not sure it is. Does it lead with the client to over there thinking, external thinking? Possibly it does. Find my own happiness, find myself. Okay, so I need to find myself, find my own happiness, right, okay. Can you see it goes to a more sort of, how can I go about doing that? And it might not always, I have to do some generalisations in putting these together, but I hope it helps you to sort of understand what I'm sort of talking about. So the counsellor manages to bracket their own experience and responds with empathy. Lost. So that's a one-word reflection. And rewind 8, 9, 10 years ago, I would have really not gone in for reflections generally, but also especially one-word reflections, just like, oh no, it's so sort of insipid and, it feels so sort of, I can't describe it. It's like a feeling of, aren't we being therapeutic with our... The thing is, though, it was a barrier in me. Since I've started using reflections, my clients respond incredibly well, and it's like with everything, they just need to be done with some thought and some care and some skill, so that they land quite well for the client and they don't too much disrupt that stream of of consciousness, that dialogue. So what can happen in the absence of empathy? So I'm just putting together 2 excerpts of conversations. So speaker, I don't want to be here. I have no joy in anything anymore. I just want to hide away. Listener, I used to feel so low, but I got up and I kept going and I feel so much better for it now. Speaker, I've really tried. I honestly have. I have tried to get going. Listener, but you can't give up. What are you going to do? Stay like this forever? Speaker, I know. This is why I want to disappear. I'm sure I'll be fine. I just need to ride it out. So can you see what's happened? The speaker has ultimately said, can we stop this conversation now? I'm sure I'll be fine, yeah. Because that's the level of scrutiny when you're feeling so vulnerable. It's just not useful. It's hurtful and it And if not, well, at very least it's hurtful to the conversation. And the listener used to feel so low, but I got up and I kept going, I did it, so you can. I'm strong. I managed to get through it. Why can't you? There's that sort of, be stronger, be like me. And listener, you can't give up. What are you going to do? Stay like this forever? Like, that makes no sense. Sort it out. Think about this undercurrent behind the words. And I'm not saying for a minute that the listener is out to hurt and out to make things difficult for the speaker. We need to think about, where does that come from in me? Where does that come from in me, in my life, in my history? What's going on for me that I'm finding it hard to support this person with empathy? So let's see that same conversation with empathy. So speaker, I don't want to be here. I have no joy in anything anymore. I just want to hide away. So same presentation. Listener, nothing brings you pleasure anymore. You just want to sort of withdraw, disappear. Speaker, I do. I know I sound miserable, but that's what I feel. I can't be bothered with anything. Everything feels huge. Listener, you're feeling overwhelmed and have no motivation. Speaker, I don't even know why. Life is pretty empty, really. I managed to get to work, but other than that, it's just me and Netflix. Listener, other than work, your life's pretty empty. Speaker, it is. It's empty. I don't do anything I used to do anymore. So can you see the listener has based all their interventions in what the speaker has said? And try to get some of that emotional words in there. Overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Life's feeling pretty empty. Nothing brings you pleasure anymore. They're staying with it rather than trying to rescue. And we've all done it. Rather than try to fix, make it better, cheer up the person in the moment. And the results probably won't last. Or might not last. I don't want to, be too sort of generalising. And what's happened? Well, to be honest, the speaker has not just jumped up and skipped off over the meadows, because that's quite often not how it's going to go. It's going to be a matter of time. That what you have done though there is you've got more detail. Can you see how we've got more detail inadvertently? And that's what happens with good reflecting and paraphrasing. You end up getting far more detail, and the client ends up being able to explore the situation in a lot more depth. And that's what you need. That is what you need. I always think that in my life, my job is to become a Sally expert. I want to be a Sally expert, and that is one of my main focuses. I think if you become an expert of yourself, then the world's your oyster. Oh, this one's got a transition. I'm just going to click it all down because I must have used it in the past. So empathy involves listening, really listening. So it involves listening to and focusing on what the other person is saying with the whole of you. Really zoning in. And you might find that the world around the client gets a bit pale. You might find that you're really slumped in your chair because you're really zoned in. So it involves understanding what has been said, but with the emotional content, the significance of what is being said in the client's context, not yours. Noticing the emphasis on the words, noticing pauses and tonal changes, responding at the appropriate level of intensity. Therefore, while hearing is a physical activity, listening is a mental and emotional activity. So we need to really understand the person in front of us. If they come into the room and they're like, I applied for a job and I got it. Okay. Normally we might be like, oh, wow, look at, well done, look at you. But if we know that the client didn't want to leave their old job, they were made redundant, then that's not appropriate, is it? So read the person. What's needed here? All right. How are you doing? Check it out. Don't make any assumptions. So barriers to empathy. Now, I've already sort of said that the main barrier to empathy quite often is in us, in our history, in our conditions of worth, in the way we've been raised. Quite often that is where barriers to empathy reside. But also it can be other stuff, like the client having a different gender, culture, sort of social status or age to us. Maybe a lot older, a lot younger. How does that How does that impact on us? A strong dialect, or there may be a language barrier. An attribute which stands out to you. A manner or appearance of someone you know or someone you knew. And that's where transference can start happening, or parallel process. You may feel out of your depth. Oh my goodness, I'm not sure I can help this person. This is something new for me. I've not come across this in a client presentation before. Yikes. Or you may feel powerful. Oh, come flock this way. I will help everyone. I will fix everyone. Everything's great. If I can't fix you, then it's probably your fault, you know. And you do sort of feel that around the edges sometimes in discussion. Or you might feel powerless. Like, come on in. Hi, yeah. I hope I can help. You might feel uncomfortable physically or mentally. Might have something going on in life. Or you might strongly disagree with something the client is saying. So there's probably a few more barriers, to be honest, but they're just the ones that came to my mind when I was putting this together. Okay, another transition. I have to remember to check for these. So barriers to empathy, a closer look. We tend to only hear what we expect to hear and filter out the things that differ from our preconceptions. Okay, so we can actually listen quite selectively for things that line up with how we see the world. And that's why it's so important to be aware of what's in your world, you know, that frames of reference thing again. So previous knowledge and existing attitudes can eliminate detail so that we actually listen quite selectively. So if we've got a person in front of us that leads their life in a way that we never would, and they sort of conversationally drop that in, it might be that we're just like, ooh, I'll just let that pass because that's not really on my radar, unconsciously or consciously. Before the speaker is finished, we're already formulating an answer, and this distracts us from what is actually being said. And that's totally going to happen, you know, when you're a trainee, newly qualified, you're going to be thinking, and also years into it, you know, you might be thinking, how can I respond to that on some level? But just allow yourself to really home in on what a person's saying and be authentic with it. Like, actually, I'm not sure what to say to that. Let me just get my head around what you've just, you know, what you've just talked to me about. So this, and this, and just roll it back into what has been said. So we may substitute our feelings and understandings of the client's situation with the client's thoughts and feelings, regardless of what they might be feeling. So I told you that thing before about someone getting a job. Oh wow, yay! We've had some great experiences in the past where we've got jobs and it's always good, and we've had parties and it's been, you know, it's been great or whatever. And they might not be there. So don't substitute what you might feel with what they feel. Check it out. And sentiments and feelings which may feel uncomfortable to us can be avoided and disregarded. It's a bit like that filtering what you the things that differ from our preconceptions. So you need to sort of think about the things that societally we don't necessarily talk about, personally you don't necessarily talk about. Have a little think what they are, and if a person talks about them, do you particularly engage with that? Do you feel you can? It's all for your own reflections. So I wanted to try and get this down to roughly half an hour. So I'm glad that I'm looking at the clock and I've talked to you for 33 minutes. So I've put some references there of the books I've used. And I'm just going to talk to you briefly about myself. Whoa, hello. So I mentioned already that I've been a counsellor for quite a while, and a trauma focused counsellor, really. That seems to be the specialism that's come through from my experience and qualifications. So I'm a level 7 masters qualified, and I'm a BACP accredited counsellor, lecturer and qualified clinical supervisor, and I have roughly 8,000 to 10,000 hours of experience counselling police and civilian clients. I've worked for the police for 6 or 7 years now, as well as private caseload. My background includes teaching adult learners to become qualified counsellors. I did that for a few years in a sort of educational organisation up near Leeds. My focus at present is my client work, supervision, lecturing in supervision. I do that at the minute, and offering group supervision. And I also offer intensive skills sessions for trainee and qualified counsellors. So please keep checking in with this channel. I'm going to be putting videos up all the time. Reach out to me if you want. There's my website there, www.nextchapter.org.uk. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk. And all the YouTube stuff applies. I want to build this channel. I'm really quite excited about it. So please like this video, subscribe to the channel, even though there's not a lot on it yet, but there will be, and put a comment below, even if it's just saying hello. So you take care, go well, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye-bye for now.